Welcome to today's video where we will make this strawberry wheat brew. This beer consists of a American wheat base and strawberry puree. We will be mashing in at 149 degrees Fahrenheit today for 60 minutes. Our mash consists of 7.5 pounds of pale ale, 4.5 pounds of white wheat malt, and 12 ounces of acidulated malt. We want to get this stirred in to avoid any dough balls. And then we'll go ahead and test our pH and temperature. So we're at 5.5 pH at 147 degrees. We'll plug those values into a conversion calculator, which gives us 5.67 pH. So we'll go ahead and add 1 milliliter of lactic acid to this, give it a stir, and wait a few minutes and test again. Testing again, we've got 5.3 pH at 147 degrees, which is actually 5.49 pH, which is what we're looking for. So we'll go ahead and take a gravity reading here at the end of the 60 minutes. And it looks like we're at 11 bricks or 1044 SG, which is perfect. So we'll go ahead and pull our grains out, and I've set up this pulley system to help me hoist up the grains. We'll get it transferred into our boil kettle, and we'll go ahead with our first wort hops. Now, first wort hops give a smoother bitterness, and we have a really small amount, just about ½ ounce. So before boil, we'll go ahead and add our hops, ½ ounce of Chinook, and we'll fight off this boil over. Yeah, there we go. And then we'll just boil for 60 minutes. And boil some more. And there we go. All right, so at 50 minutes, we'll go ahead and add our yeast nutrient and our cooling coil here. And we'll start cooling down, and I forgot a Werflock tablet. So chuck that in and reboil and recool down. All right, we're at 86 degrees. We're gonna get a little bit cooler. There we go, 80. And then we'll transfer into our fermenter bucket here and go ahead and take a original gravity reading. And that OG is about 14 bricks, which is right on the money. So we'll go ahead and finish up the transfer. And then we're at 70 degrees, which is perfect for our yeast. We are using Lallemand Windsor yeast, which should give us some fruity aromas, a medium body, and a clean, quick fermentation. We'll go ahead and add our airlock here and put this fermenter bucket aside to ferment. All right, friends, the day has come. We will be transferring our wheat beer into a secondary vessel for secondary fermentation, or really just as a holding vessel for our strawberry puree to get incorporated into our wheat beer. A couple of items that we'll be adding are potassium sorbate and 2 Campton tablets. Potassium sorbate will arrest fermentation, and then the Campton tablets will kill off any bugs in there that we don't want. This is just at the tail end of fermentation here, so we will take a gravity reading to see where we're at. So let's get into it. All right, so with my handy dandy tin snips, I'm going to open up the bag of potassium sorbate. This says dissolve ½ teaspoon per gallon. So we have 5 gallons, we need 2.5 teaspoons. 1, 2, yeah. And also 2 Campton tablets, which I will just crush in the teaspoon that I used for the potassium sorbate. Put that on in there. And then with the freshly sanitized transfer wand, go ahead and start transferring our beer into the secondary vessel. And then just sit back and have a beer. All right, and we'll go ahead and pull a sample for the gravity reading. Probably would have been easier if I pulled it while we were transferring, but I didn't, so. So I'd say we are about at 10, 12 or 1.2. All right, so 10, 12 is about where we should be on finish for this beer. So we're not arresting anything that shouldn't be happening with our potassium sorbate. So we're gonna put our lid on, and then I'm gonna pump in some CO2 on top. That extra CO2 on top should help us keep from oxidizing. And we're gonna go ahead and put in our bubbler again. And we'll let that sit for about 24 hours and come back tomorrow and put it in our puree. And then we'll let that sit for about 5 days. And then we'll keg it and get it on CO2 and try it out. It's tasty. Or the very next day, getting ready to put in our strawberry puree. So I sanitized the grain bag that I'm using and put it into the fermenter bucket, and then just poured my puree in. Go ahead and get that lid snap back on and purge a few more times with some CO2. Put a bubbler on and let it sit. Alright, so here we are approximately 5 days later, and we're finally ready to keg this beer. Here you see me preparing by spraying everything down with Star San, and I've already sanitized the keg, and we'll get this siphon going. We'll get the keg over to the kegerator to cold crash and get some CO2 on it. I won't show it here, but I will purge the keg multiple times to avoid oxidation. Alright, so let's grab a pour and talk about it. As you can see, the clarity is very opaque, and I think that has to do with it being a wheat beer and a fruited beer. The aroma on this is straight strawberry. The flavor is pleasantly tart and fruity, which I think lends itself more to a Berliner Weiss than just a fruited wheat beer. I think this tartness came from a lactobacillus fermentation, which wasn't the intent, but you know, it came out and it tastes great. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed watching how I made this beer. If you like this kind of content, consider subscribing and check out my other content.